If you told me a year ago that a wedding would turn my world upside down, I would have laughed and offered you another cup of coffee. But there I was, standing in my modest Ohio home, polishing the old maple kitchen table, not knowing that life was about to throw me into the middle of a storm. The morning of the wedding started the way any Saturday does for a man of 74, black coffee, the sports section, and the quiet hum of the fridge for company. My grandson, Michael, called me at 8 o'clock sharp. Even as a grown man, he's always been the early bird. "Grandpa, you ready for the big day?" he asked, excitement crackling in his voice. "Ready as I'll ever be, kiddo. Your Grandma Helen would be so proud of you." He laughed. "Maggie's a little nervous, but I told her you'd be there, steady as a rock." Maggie, short for Margaret Allen, now Margaret Baxter. A bright, lively girl from Cincinnati, always quick with a joke, but since the engagement, I'd noticed a different side. Calculating, a little impatient, eyes that always seemed to linger a second too long on the old photos and the house itself. Still, love is blind, especially when you're young. The ceremony was at the Willowbrook Chapel on the edge of Columbus, a pretty spot, all white columns and weeping willows. Family poured in from every corner of the state. My son, Greg, was fussing with his tie, my daughter-in-law Nancy already tearing up with pride. And there she was, Maggie, in a gown that must have cost more than my first pickup. She was radiant, yes, but there was something else there too, a kind of restlessness, as if she was already plotting her next move. The wedding itself went off without a hitch, at least at first. The guests smiled, the music played, Michael and Maggie exchanged vows, and even I felt my chest tighten with happiness for my grandson. But after the rice was thrown and the photos taken, the real trouble began. The reception was held at the Franklin Country Club. It was fancy enough to make anyone feel like they'd stepped into someone else's life. There was a jazz band, endless hors d'oeuvres, and speeches that dragged on until the kids grew restless. That's when Maggie made her move. She waited until most eyes were on the dance floor, then pulled me aside near the gift table. "Mr. Baxter, can we talk in private?" "Of course, Maggie. What's on your mind?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's time to talk about your house. Michael and I, well, we're starting our family soon, and a young couple needs space. That big old house is perfect for us. You'd be happier somewhere cozier, don't you think?" I stared at her, heart pounding. My house. The one Helen and I saved for, where we raised our kids and watched the grandkids take their first steps. The idea that I was just supposed to hand it over, just like that, made my blood run cold. "I appreciate your concern, Maggie, but that's my home," I said quietly, steady as I could. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "You're alone now. Wouldn't you rather see your family grow in that space? Think about it. You could move into one of those retirement places. It's what people your age do." I bristled but kept my calm. "I'll think about it, Maggie. But for now, let's just enjoy your big day." But that wasn't enough for her. Her face hardened. "I'm not asking, Mr. Baxter. I'm telling you, Michael and I deserve that house. You're being selfish." Before I could respond, she spun away, blending back into the crowd, her wedding dress trailing like a flag of victory. I stood there, frozen, the noise of the party suddenly muffled. I knew right then that this wasn't over. That was the day I realized, some storms don't come with warning clouds. They arrive on the happiest day of your family's life, wearing a wedding gown and a practiced smile. I stood by the punch bowl a long time after Maggie walked away, watching my family swirl through the Franklin Country Club ballroom. My fingers traced the rim of my coffee cup. I'd faced a lot in 74 years. War, recession, losing Helen to cancer, but nothing stung quite like being told, at my own grandson's wedding, that I was nothing more than a roadblock to someone else's happiness. The celebration pressed on, but a shadow followed me everywhere. I caught glimpses of Maggie, laughing loudly with Michael's college friends, all perfect teeth and easy charm. But every time our eyes met, hers turned cold as river stones. I didn't know if Michael noticed. He was too caught up in the party, finally free from years of penny pinching and singlehood. I watched him spin his new bride around the dance floor, oblivious to the storm she just set in motion. Family came and went, pressing hugs and congratulations into my hands. My son Greg pulled me aside near the end of the evening. "Dad, you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Just tired, son. These events always wipe me out." He clapped me on the back, his wedding ring flashing under the chandelier. "You did a good job, Dad. Michael's lucky to have you." If only he knew. The party wound down and the newlyweds left in a flurry of confetti, waving from the back of a rented Cadillac. The family trickled out, one carload at a time. Alone at the end, I gathered my jacket and gift bag, then walked out under the yellow glow of the club's entrance lights. The March wind had a sharp edge, and for the first time in years, I felt old. That night I barely slept. Helen's photograph watched me from the dresser, her eyes kind and wise as ever. I sat on the edge of the bed, telling her what happened, as if she could somehow talk sense into me from the other side. "She wants the house, Helen. Our home. Says I should give it up for Michael. Just hand it over like it's a spare umbrella. I know we always wanted the best for our family, but is this it? Is this what we built all those years for?" The next morning, I found myself replaying the confrontation over and over. I walked the halls of the old house, trailing my hand along the wallpaper Helen picked out the year our youngest went off to college. The kitchen still smelled faintly of her lemon pie, though it had been years since she last baked. I wandered into the den, the fireplace stacked with old photos, Christmas mornings, graduation days, Helen smiling on the front porch. That afternoon, Michael called. "Grandpa, did you get home all right? Last night was a blur, huh? It was a beautiful day, son. I'm happy for you. How's married life treating you?" He laughed. "We haven't even finished opening gifts yet, but Maggie's already talking about how she wants to rearrange the house. She's got big plans for our future, Grandpa." I hesitated, the words thick on my tongue. "Michael, has Maggie mentioned anything to you about my house?" He paused, and for a second I heard only static. She might have brought it up. She just wants us all to be comfortable, you know? She loves the place, Grandpa. Says it feels like a real family home. But hey, no pressure. We'll talk later, okay? Maggie's calling for me. Love you, Grandpa." The line went dead. After the call, I stared out the window at the empty street, my thoughts racing. I felt a familiar ache, the same one I'd felt when Helen's test results came back, when I held Michael as a newborn, terrified I'd drop him. It was the ache of powerlessness, the sharp edge of knowing you can't stop time or turn back a decision. By the third night, sleep was just a rumor. I found myself at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, making lists. What would Helen do? What would Michael do if roles were reversed? Why did Maggie want the house so badly? The answer came to me in flashes. Maggie, with her expensive tastes, her relentless ambition, wasn't just after a place to live, she wanted security, status, a shortcut. My home was her golden ticket. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The next morning, I called an old friend, Bill Carter, who'd been my neighbor since the Carter administration and knew everyone in the local real estate game. "Bill, you ever heard of a way to protect a house from being snatched up by family squabbles?" He chuckled. "Only about a dozen, Frank. You thinking of making some changes?" "Maybe. Just want to keep the place safe for now. Too many memories here to hand over to someone who doesn't appreciate 'em. Stop by my office tomorrow. We'll go over options. Trust me, you've got more power than you think." That conversation sparked something in me. I might be old, but I wasn't helpless. I'd built a life brick by brick. I'd weathered storms before. And if Maggie Allen Baxter wanted a fight, well, she was about to learn just how stubborn an old man can be. By the time morning rolled around, I had more energy in my step than I'd had in years. I put on my cleanest shirt, ironed my slacks, and headed to Bill Carter's office on Main Street. His place hadn't changed in decades. Same cracked leather chairs, same coffee machine humming in the corner. He greeted me with a bear hug and a fresh cup, no questions asked. "All right, Frank," he said, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "You know how many old-timers around here come in with stories just like yours? Kids or grandkids thinking they're entitled to what you built. Let's look at your options." We went over everything: transfer on death deeds, living trusts, even putting the house in a foundation. Bill explained it all in plain language. Bottom line, you get to decide what happens to your property, not anyone else. Not until you say so. I left Bill's office with a new sense of purpose. Maybe Maggie thought she'd just waltz into my home and start redecorating, but this house had always been more than just wood and bricks. It was Helen's laughter in the hallway, Michael's first wobbly steps on the porch, late nights helping Greg with his science fair projects. A person's life doesn't fit neatly in a moving box, no matter how determined someone is to shove it in there. Back at home, I took out Helen's recipe box and set about making her famous cinnamon bread. There was something about kneading dough that made the world's troubles fade away, even for just a little while. As the bread baked, the phone rang. It was Nancy, my daughter-in-law. Her voice was tight. "Dad, I know things got a little tense at the wedding. I wanted to check on you. Michael says Maggie's been pushing about the house." I tried to laugh it off. Kids these days. Always in a hurry. Tell Michael not to worry about me. I've got everything under control. But Nancy wasn't fooled. Maggie isn't like the other girls Michael dated. She's ambitious, Dad. She'll push as far as she can unless someone stands up to her. That night, as I sat on the porch with a slice of cinnamon bread in the cool spring air, I saw headlights swing into my driveway. It was Michael. He walked up with his hands in his pockets, looking both nervous and determined. "Grandpa, can we talk?" "Of course, son. Always." He slumped into the old porch swing beside me. "Maggie's upset. She thinks you're being unreasonable. She says if you really cared about us, you'd let us have the house so we could start a family right. She keeps saying you'd be happier in a condo or somewhere with people your age." I stared out at the darkened yard, the maple trees Helen planted swaying in the wind. "Michael, let me ask you something. Did you ever feel crowded in this house growing up? Did you ever wish you lived somewhere else?" He shook his head. "Never. This was home. Still is. That's what I'm trying to protect. Not just a building, but a lifetime of memories. Your grandma and I put everything we had into making this place what it is. If you and Maggie want to make your own memories, I think you should start in your own home." Michael was silent a long time. "She's not going to let this go, Grandpa. She's stubborn. She already started packing up some of your photo albums in the den. Said they'd get ruined if you stayed here too long by yourself." That did it. I stood up, feeling years drop from my shoulders. "Michael, you go home. Tell Maggie I'll talk to her when I'm ready." After he left, I went inside and saw what she'd done. Half the shelves cleared, Helen's old photo albums stacked in a box marked "Attic." My hands shook with anger. She was already moving me out before I'd even decided to go. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at those boxes, thinking about all the times Helen and I sat here planning our future. If Maggie thought she could just erase a lifetime with a cardboard box, she was about to learn different. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced the halls of the house, each room whispering Helen's memories. I knew what I had to do. It was time to make my move. The next morning, I called Bill Carter and told him I was ready. "Let's set up a living trust," I said. and make it ironclad. I want Michael to have this house one day, but only when the time is right. And until then, I stayed put." He laughed. "Good for you, Frank. I'll draw up the paperwork and we'll get it signed before the week is out." As I hung up, a calm settled over me. I wasn't just protecting bricks and mortar, I was standing up for my family's real legacy. Maggie might have thought she was marrying into an easy future, but she hadn't counted on the old man fighting back. That night, as rain tapped the windows, I sat by the fireplace with a cup of Helen's favorite tea, feeling her presence stronger than ever. "Don't worry, Helen," I whispered. "Your home is safe. For now." But something told me Maggie wasn't finished. Not by a long show. 3 days passed quietly. I spent them organizing paperwork with Bill Carter, locking down every loophole, checking every detail twice. Bill worked fast. By Thursday afternoon, the living trust was signed, notarized, and filed with the county. No one could touch the house without my say-so. It was mine, just as Helen and I had planned. I thought about calling Michael and explaining, but something told me to wait. Sometimes, a lesson needs to land on its own, without a speech from Grandpa. Friday evening brought the storm I'd been expecting. I just sat down with a bowl of Helen's tomato soup when I heard tires crunching up the driveway. The doorbell rang, a frantic, impatient sound that echoed through the house. When I opened the door, Maggie stood on the porch, rain splattering across her sharp red heels. She didn't wait for an invitation. She brushed past me into the hallway, carrying the scent of expensive perfume and cold determination. "Frank, we need to talk." I set down my soup, steadying myself. "All right, Maggie. Let's talk." She didn't bother with pleasantries. "Why are you making this so difficult? You know Michael and I want to raise a family here. Why can't you just let go? You'd be so much happier in one of those new senior living places, with people your age and everything taken care of for you." I stared at her, really looked at her. I saw the impatience, the ambition, the sense of entitlement she carried like a badge. "Maggie, I built this house. Every nail, every shingle, every flower in the yard. It's not just property to me." She shook her head, her voice rising. "You're being selfish. Michael deserves a fresh start. We deserve a real home. This is my home. Yours and Michael's is out there, waiting for you both to find it. I'm not ready to hand this over." Maggie's face darkened. "You know what? You're just like Michael said, stubborn, stuck in the past. If you really cared about him, you'd give us what we need." That stung more than I wanted to admit. "Maggie, I care about Michael more than anything in this world. That's exactly why I won't give him everything he asks for. He needs to build something of his own, the way Helen and I did." She crossed her arms. "You think I'm the problem, don't you? You never gave me a chance. You never trusted me." I sighed. "I've tried, Maggie. But trust is earned, not demanded. And right now you're not making it easy." She stared at me for a long, tense moment. I saw the gears turning, the plans forming behind her cool blue eyes. "Well, if that's how it is," she said finally, "don't be surprised if Michael stops coming around. You're pushing us away." She turned and left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the old stained glass. I stood in the quiet, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. Was I pushing Michael away? Was I being too hard, too stubborn? I thought of Helen, of all the sacrifices we made for family. No, this wasn't about stubbornness. It was about protecting the heart of our family, the place where every good memory began. I tried to call Michael that night, but he didn't pick up. My messages went unanswered. By Saturday morning, I found myself drifting through the house, each room echoing with memories. The kitchen where Helen used to dance while making pancakes. The living room where we'd spent Christmas Eves by the fire, Michael sneaking extra cookies. Every inch of this house was layered with love and laughter and history. Just before noon, Nancy stopped by. She looked tired, eyes red-rimmed from worry. Dad, things are tense at our place. Michael's upset. Maggie's furious. I just wanted to check on you. I poured her a cup of coffee, and we sat at the kitchen table in silence. After a while, she spoke. You know, Dad, Michael's a grown man. He'll figure it out. I think Maggie's got him turned around right now, but deep down, he knows what matters. You did the right thing. I squeezed her hand. Thanks, Nancy. I just wish things didn't have to get so ugly. She managed a small smile. That's life, isn't it? We don't get to pick the battles, just how we fight them. After she left, I puttered around the house, fixing a leaky faucet in the bathroom, reorganizing my tools in the garage. I tried to keep busy, but Maggie's words echoed in my head. Was I really standing in the way of Michael's happiness? Or was I the only one seeing clearly through the fog of greed and impatience? That night, I made up my mind. I pulled out the old photo albums, Helen and me on our wedding day, Michael as a baby, Greg and Nancy in the backyard at summer cookouts. I stacked the albums on the kitchen table, one by one, and sat there until dawn, flipping through every memory. Sometimes, the only way to fight for the future is to remember exactly what you're fighting for. Sunday morning dawned gray and chilly. I sipped coffee on the porch as church bells rang across town. I realized, as I watched the sunlight break through the clouds, that no matter what Maggie tried next, I was ready. This house would not be taken by force, or by guilt, or by greed. It would stay in the family, on my terms and in my time. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt peace. But I knew deep down, the battle was far from over. If peace lasted long in this world, maybe I'd have let my guard down. But Monday brought a knock that changed the temperature of the whole week. I was out in the backyard pruning Helen's rosebushes when I heard sharp footsteps on the porch. Maggie again, this time with Michael trailing behind her, shoulders tense. Grandpa, we need to talk, Michael said, avoiding my eyes. I set down my gardening gloves, brushing dirt from my jeans. All right, come on in. Let's settle this. We gathered in the living room, Helen's old quilt draped over the back of the couch. Maggie took charge immediately, dropping a folder thick with papers on the coffee table. She looked me straight in the eye. Frank, I spoke with a realtor. They say your house could fetch nearly $500,000 as is. Think of what that could do for you. You could travel, you could move into a community with friends your age, no worries, no maintenance. I shook my head. And leave the only place I've ever called home? No, Maggie, I'm not interested. She leaned forward, her tone sharp. This isn't just about you, Frank. Michael and I want to start a family. We need space. Why can't you see that this is the right thing? Michael finally looked up, pain in his eyes. Grandpa, please. I love this house too, but Maggie's right. We need to move forward. We're barely scraping by in our apartment. You'd have everything you need. It's just practical. Practical isn't always right, son, I said softly. I want you to have everything, but not at the cost of everything I've worked for. Maggie's frustration boiled over. You're just being selfish. Michael said you'd understand if you cared about his future. Those words stung. I stood, steadied myself, and pointed to the window where Helen's garden was in full bloom. See that rose bush? Your grandma planted it when we moved in. Every year, we watched it grow a little more. That's what family is supposed to be: roots, history, effort. Not just taking the easy way because it's new and shiny. Maggie's lips curled in a tight line. You can either help us, or you can watch us struggle. But you can't stop us from moving forward. I studied Michael, waiting for him to meet my eyes. He looked away. Finally, Maggie grabbed the folder and stormed out, her heels echoing down the hall. Michael lingered for a moment, torn. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I just... I thought you'd help us. Michael, I said quietly, helping you doesn't mean giving up what matters most. You'll see that one day. He nodded, eyes shining, and hurried after his wife. When the house fell silent, I let out a breath I'd been holding for days. I'd expected anger, but what I felt was deeper: sorrow, the ache of family turning into strangers. I called Bill Carter that evening and told him about the confrontation. He whistled low. You did the right thing, Frank. Let them cool off. The more you hold your ground, the more likely they'll come to respect it. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but it'll come. Still, I didn't sleep much that night. Memories spun in my mind like old home movies. Michael running through the yard, Helen waving from the porch, summer barbecues, Christmas mornings. I wondered if Maggie saw any of that, or if all she saw was dollar signs. The next day, I got a call from Nancy. Dad, I don't know what's gotten into them. Maggie's called her parents, telling them you're kicking them out, that you don't care about their future. Michael's hurt, but he's caught in the middle. I sighed. Nancy, I love that boy. But I have to protect what's right. Sometimes, love means saying no. She sniffed. I know, Dad. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, letting her words wash over me. Maybe I was doing the hard thing. Maybe I'd be misunderstood for a while. But I'd rather stand up for our family's heart than let it be carved up for convenience. Thursday brought a letter in the mail, unexpected and unwelcome. An official-looking envelope, addressed to me in bold print. Inside, a notice from a law firm. Possible legal action regarding transfer of property rights. Maggie's doing, without a doubt. My hands trembled, but not with fear, with resolve. I called Bill, explained the letter. Don't worry, he said. Your trust is rock solid. No court in Ohio will touch it, not as long as you're of sound mind and body. I hung up and walked through the house, each room whispering Helen's name, each wall echoing with decades of laughter and love. That night, I found myself standing in the backyard under the stars, breathing in the cool spring air. I looked up, feeling Helen's presence. They're not going to take our home, sweetheart. I promise. And as the wind rustled the branches, I could almost hear her answer. Good. Stand your ground, Frank. This is what we built it for. The storm was growing. But so was my strength. The threat of legal action hung over me like a thundercloud. It was a new kind of pain, not from aging joints or a lonely house, but from the sharp betrayal of kin. I spent the next day restlessly cleaning, dusting shelves, reorganizing Helen's old china, anything to keep my mind from dwelling too long on lawyers and arguments. Friday afternoon, Bill Carter came by, carrying a folder of paperwork and his reliable calm. He sat with me at the kitchen table, spreading out documents between mugs of strong black coffee. Frank, you've done everything right. This trust can't be broken by threats, and certainly not by the in-laws. It's ironclad. You're protected. He paused, lowering his voice. But you might want to have a conversation with Michael. It's better to clear the air than let someone else poison it. I nodded. He was right. By now, Michael deserved to hear the truth, from me, not from Maggie or her parents or some suit in a law office. I dialed Michael's number that evening, heart pounding as I waited for him to answer. When his voice finally came through, it was quiet, tired. Hey, Grandpa. Michael, can you come by tomorrow? Just you. No arguments, no Maggie, just a talk between us. He hesitated, but finally agreed. Yeah. I'll be there. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. I set out Helen's good china and made a batch of her famous biscuits. The way I did when Michael was just a boy. When he arrived, I saw the weariness in his eyes, the lines of worry that hadn't been there a year ago. We sat on the porch, the morning sun casting long shadows across the lawn. I know you're angry, I began gently. And I know Maggie's put a lot of ideas in your head. But I need you to understand why I'm doing this. He looked away, jaw clenched. She just wants what's best for us, Grandpa. She thinks you're holding us back. Michael, let me tell you a story. I sipped my coffee, gathering my thoughts. When your grandma and I bought this place, we had nothing. We worked 2 jobs, lived on beans and toast, and built every bit of this house with our hands. It wasn't easy. There were nights we thought we'd lose everything. But we stuck it out. And you know what? That struggle, it made us who we were. It made this house more than just wood and plaster. It made it a home. He was silent, staring at the rose bushes Helen planted so long ago. I want you to have everything, Michael. But I can't hand you the keys to a life you haven't built yourself. You deserve to know what it's like to fight for something, to make your own way. And one day, when you're ready, when you've built something real with your own 2 hands, this house will be waiting for you. But not a moment sooner. He looked at me, his eyes wet with tears he tried to hide. I miss how things used to be, Grandpa. Before Maggie, before all this arguing. I just wanted everyone to be happy. I put my hand on his shoulder, feeling the strength in his frame, the same strength I'd seen grow since he was a child. You still can be. But happiness doesn't come from houses or bank accounts. It comes from family. From loving and respecting each other, even when it's hard. We sat for a long time, letting the silence do the talking. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I let Maggie push me too far. I should have stood up for you. I should have remembered what this place means to us. I squeezed his hand. It's never too late to come home, son. He nodded, shoulders relaxing for the first time in weeks. I'll talk to her. I don't want to lose you. Or this family. The relief in my heart was so strong it nearly brought me to tears. For the first time since the wedding, I saw the boy I'd raised shining through the confusion. That evening, Michael texted me. Talked with Maggie. She's upset, but she's starting to understand. Says she needs time to think. I'm not giving up on us, Grandpa. I promise. I stood on the back porch under a velvet sky, the air humming with the sound of cicadas. Helen's wind chimes tinkled softly in the breeze. I felt her there beside me, proud, fierce, and unbroken. I whispered into the dark. We're going to be all right, Helen. I think he finally sees. But deep down, I knew Maggie wouldn't let go so easily. Sometimes the biggest storms come right before the calm. And sure enough, the phone rang the next morning. Maggie, her voice cold and measured. Frank, I hope you're satisfied. You've turned Michael against me, and you've made it clear you'll never accept me as family. My voice was steady. You're welcome in this family, Maggie. But you have to respect what it stands for. There was a long silence before she hung up. No more threats. No more pleading. Just the quiet of 2 people who finally saw each other clearly. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope. Maybe the road ahead would be rocky. But this family, our home, was worth every fight. The days that followed were quieter. Michael still called every evening, checking on me, sometimes just to talk about baseball or the weather. Maggie, for the most part, kept her distance. She returned only once, to pick up a box of her things she'd left after the wedding, her eyes guarded, her tone polite but distant. I held the door open and wished her well, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of sadness in her, the ambition that once burned so bright now tempered by something softer, maybe regret, maybe understanding. Word spread quickly through the family, as it always does in a small Ohio town. Some cousins called to say I was stubborn. Others called to say I was brave. But those who mattered most, my son Greg, my daughter-in-law Nancy, even Helen's oldest friend Martha, sent letters and stopped by with pies and flowers, reminding me I wasn't alone. Spring melted into summer. The roses Helen planted bloomed in brilliant reds and pinks, and Michael came by on weekends to help tend the yard. We built a new birdhouse together, just like we'd done when he was a boy, laughing as we hammered crooked nails and painted it bright blue. One Saturday, Michael showed up with a nervous look. He took off his cap, ran his hand through his hair, and said, "Grandpa, Maggie and I are taking a break. She's gone to stay with her folks for a while. She says she needs to figure out what she really wants." I nodded, listening, letting him lead the conversation. "You know," he continued, "I think I lost myself a bit these last few months. I wanted to make everyone happy, but I forgot what made me happy. I forgot where I came from." I smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. "That's the thing about family, Michael. You can drift, you can get lost, but home is always waiting. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Sometimes you have to let go. But it's always there." He grinned, the worry lines softening. "Thanks, Grandpa. For everything." The weeks passed, and though there were still hard moments, awkward phone calls, strained family gatherings, even a few angry words, slowly, the wounds began to heal. Maggie called Michael sometimes just to talk, sometimes to argue, but the bitterness was fading. She got a job teaching at the local community college, started renting her own small apartment on the edge of town. For the first time, I saw her making her own life, one step at a time. As for me, I kept busy. There were always repairs to do, memories to dust off, old friends to meet at the diner for coffee. The house felt less like a fortress and more like a sanctuary again, a place filled not with battles, but with the quiet, steady beat of love that had always defined our family. One evening, near the end of summer, Michael joined me on the porch. The sky was ablaze with orange and gold, fireflies flickering in the long grass. He sat beside me, silent for a long time. "Grandpa," he said finally, "do you ever regret not moving on? Letting go?" I took my time before answering, letting the peaceful night fill the space between us. "Sometimes I wonder, Michael. Life's about change, after all. But this house, it's not just a place. It's our story. It's Helen's laughter in the kitchen, your footsteps on the stairs, the sound of your father playing guitar on the porch. It's every sacrifice, every triumph, every lesson we learned the hard way." He nodded, watching the stars come out. "One day, I hope I have something like this to give my own kids." "You will, Michael. You will. Just remember, it isn't the house that matters most. It's the love you build inside it." As darkness settled over the yard, we sat together in companionable silence, letting the summer night wrap around us. I knew there would be other storms, other tests. But for now, there was peace, and the unbreakable thread of family tying us together through every season. Helen's wind chimes sang in the breeze, and I smiled, feeling her presence in every corner of the home we built, a home that would outlast conflict, time, and even sorrow. Because in the end, that's what matters. Not the house, not the money, not even the victories or losses. Just love. Just family. Just home.